Hi, good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well this evening. I'm normally doing these live streams. I usually do them just by myself, but for the first time, as the first guest, he is the co-host of Cafe De Rene alongside Rene Dupree. James, welcome. How are you?
I feel quite special being the first guest.
I hope it's an honor. Hope it's an honor, not a dubious one.
No, it's great. Thanks for having me. Like, I've checked out some of your stuff, and you've obviously sent me some clips in the past as well, which I'm thankful, and like stories. So, yeah, when you messaged me, say if you want to pump on, I'm like, yeah, sure. So happy to be on.
No, that's great. Excellent. Yeah, and I know it was around that time with all that stuff with the whole Janelle Grant lawsuit with Vince McMahon, and it was kind of a crazy time with a lot of the wrestling YouTubers, podcasters. It was a lot of easy views there to be had,
Yeah, big
and
time. I think I was talking to Renee today. A big update on this court case because February was the most views we had. We had like 1.4 million views in the space of 28 days.
wow,
Like for big channels, that's nothing. I mean, you look at
your audio might have coughed, James. I can't hear. I think it's you're on mute.
sorry about that.
No worries.
I'll just double check. Yeah, I must have just accidentally pressed the wire. There we go. Well, let me just double check this. Let me plug it in the other one. There we go.
You're good, yeah.
Good, cool.
Guys, technology, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not used to a microphone. For about 2.5 years, I was just doing the podcast off my phone. So then Renee got onto me. He's like, "You need a laptop, James." So got the laptop. Then eventually got the mic. Could do with like a HD camera. That's the next investment. But now I was saying, yeah, back in February, I think in the space of like 3 or 4 weeks, we had like nearly 1.5 million views. Definitely like our biggest month, and it has gone down since then. And I've been watching the Johnny Depp Amber Heard series on Netflix because the court case, I was obsessed with it, and they've put it into a 3 part now, like condensed it down. And I said to Renee, I'm like, this is what we could do, being greedy, being selfish. This is what we could do with Vince McMahon being on trial, a public trial, so we can just live stream it like all day.
Oh my god. Yeah, that would be something. And I mean, if they ever did that, I mean, it would just be quite crazy seeing Vince doing that.
Yeah.
And he would be probably at his most vulnerable place that he's ever been in his life because he's usually used to being getting things, everything going his own way, always, no matter what obstacle challenge was in his way, he'd always win in the end, beating the federal government, beating WCW. But now with this one, I feel it is a little bit different. And I've always said, maybe you've seen it in my videos, a lot of it is because of the culture with this, kind of politically correct time that we live in. And it's there's the cancel culture, there's the wokeness to it, which there's a good part to that in the terms of people like, Harvey Weinstein, Vince McMahon. But I
Yeah.
just feel with Vince on this one, I don't think it's going to be good in the end. I can't see him really surviving this though, with the court of public opinion.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously the Me Too movement, obviously there's been some true horror stories, but then there has been some people allegedly at Amber Heard who did try to use it to her advantage. I mean, that's how the court found it. Um, but with this girl, I mean, if what we believe is true, what she's saying is true, I'm like, well, it's literally pretty shitty. um, but Vince, why didn't he just pay up now? It gets to a point, and I remember speaking to Renee about it, I'm like, with everything that was going on between two, I don't even think it was just the fact that he was getting his rocks off. I think it wasn't about that. It was just the fact he had control over a person. Because Vince, he could have any woman he wanted, really. Like, or he could go to a massage parlor, for example. We'll say it that way. But I think it was the fact he had allegedly he had so much control over this person. That's what he got off on, and it just makes you think, why didn't he pay that extra couple of million or that extra million? But I mean, if it does go to court, and especially public, it'll be the biggest story in wrestling history, I would believe.
Oh yeah, it would have to be. I think it would trump the steroid sex scandal from 92, 94. I believe so. That it would be the biggest one. We got Nate Dizzle looking good, boys. A good reference from the Cafe De Rene. Do you know Nate Dizzle? Do you know that name?
Yeah, Nate, he's been watching us for a while. It's always great because we've got a core audience who tunes in every episode, and I thank every one of them. And like, there is the names like the OGs who I see, and I'm like, well, and even some people who came from my old channel, and they've come over to the cafe, and I'm like, wow, these people, and I done my channel. I could do with think about restarting my channel. I'm talking to Maven's guy because the guy's got the answer for the algorithm. Sack, he's great.
Oh,
Um, but I'm thinking of starting my channel back up. I don't know if I'm gonna have it as an interview style or just have it as videos. But that's in the pipeline. But yeah. So seeing people from my channel, which is what 4 years ago, and now I think Cafe's 3 years old later this year. Just seeing all these people stick around for that long. Obviously, some people's gone in the meantime, but the majority has stayed. So it's great having like this great core of fans, and it's always great to see new fans join us as well.
right. No, absolutely. And there is that kind of core group of people, and the people that you see on the live streams quite frequently as well. I've noticed that. I mean, there's the people, Paul London. I've seen Kid Cash. I know there's Ace. I've seen Flash Flanagan. He's been quite in recent times, and it is good. To build that. And I mean, this has now been about what 3 years, isn't it, James? And I had a list of questions, but we can just go about. It was. I remember you from the '90s wrestling podcast.
Yeah.
Then there was the interview with Renee, and then they got headlines because of the whole thing, because Booker T reacted to it. Talk a little bit for people who aren't familiar about that. Talk about the whole thing with Booker reacting to that with that interview with Renee.
Yeah, I love Booker T. But
Oh no, he's a character.
Booker T hates me, and it's fucking horrible. But I love Booker T. So basically, so I had my own channel, like you said, that 90s wrestling podcast, which the name didn't make sense when I started doing interviews, especially from like people past the 90s. But anyway, had Renee on the show, and we had the interview. I think we went for about an hour, and we got along, and we kind of stayed in touch afterwards. So apparently he told me the story about Goldberg messing up his shoulder. And to be honest, he only just mentioned this the other week. He said that was actually the first time I actually spoke about that. Really? He went, yeah, because no one's ever asked me about Goldberg. So I'm like, oh, right. So, and that's what he said this to me the other week, and I didn't realize. But he told the story about Goldberg messing up his shoulder, and it must have made the rounds, and on the dirt sheets and stuff. So then Booker T gave his comment, which he's more than welcome to, obviously give his opinion. He's a legend in the business. And instead of criticizing Goldberg for messing up Renee's shoulder, he started going on a tangent talking about, well, Renee did this, Renee done that. Renee, he had all his stuff stolen in Italy, and we flushed it down. Well, some people flushed it down the toilet and stuff. And so I told Renee about it, and Renee kind of got hot. So I was like, would you like to come back on the show? I'll play the clips and you can respond to it. And he's like, yeah, let's do that. So anyway, he responded to it, and Renee by now, he doesn't mince his words, and like he did give receipts for like everything that Booker said. And so that was that. So after that happened, got talking to Renee a bit more, became pals, and I was like, hey, you ever thought about having your own podcast? I'm like, I feel like there's a lot of stories you could tell, and I like to think like I was probably podcasting for about, I don't know, just over a year by that point. I was like, I like to think I can kind of host a show. Let's see how it goes. So I explained the situation. I'm like, we're not going to make money straight away, but we'll put the work in, and we'll see how it goes. And thankfully, 3 years on, we're doing all right. What are we at now? About 27,000 views, well over 10 million views, 27,000 subs, well over 10 million views, and some great guests we've had on as well, and some great stories. So yeah, so Booker T, I thank every day. Without him, there wouldn't be no Cafe De Rene.
Yeah, put you on the map. And I think the thing with Booker is he is an entertaining guy, but at the same time, I do very much feel that Booker's always got this, going to have this pro WWE stance. He's always going to watch what he says about WWE. He's not going to be criticizing the company. I don't think he would have been getting into that stuff with Vince McMahon or anything like that and Janelle Grant. But one thing with Booker T, I'll give him credit. He is critical. He's critical about the right things that you could be critical of with AEW. I noticed that last week in an interview, he was saying about they're just focusing too much on having these 5-star wrestling matches, not telling stories. And that is the big thing with AEW. That's been a big turnoff for me. And well, first off, can I ask, do you watch AEW? Do you follow that?
I can't watch a full show. I will check out clips and highlights, but in saying that, and I'm going to be fair, I rarely watch a full episode of Raw SmackDown these days, but I'll catch matches and clips when I get time. When it moves to Netflix, especially for us from the UK, we're the big winners when they move every show over to Netflix and the pay-per-views. We'll be loving it. But you know yourself, to watch Raw and SmackDown these days, you need your TNTs or whatever and stuff. And we're in a bit, there's a cost of living crisis going on right now. But so I catch the clips, or I find creative ways to watch it. But with AEW, I say this every time, I want them to succeed. I don't want WWE to be the only game in town. My favorite year of wrestling was 1997, when you had WCW on fire, ECW was doing their stuff, and WWE was starting to turn a corner, and you had the Hart Foundation against America, basically, and it was great. Sorry, I've got kids in the background, the monkeys. So I want AEW to succeed, and I want them to do really well, but the problem is, like you've mentioned, and Booker T's mentioned, they're too focused on wrestling, which I know it sounds stupid, but to me, it's all about the story being told and then the wrestling. But for them, they just had Forbidden Door. I haven't watched it, I'll be honest, but I heard every match was a good match, but that was it. It's like, okay, you had 15 great matches. No one's going to really be talking about these matches in a few weeks' time. But yet, people will talk about, for example, the Clash of the Castle finish between McIntyre and Priest and how CM Punk screwed them. People's going to talk about that long, and that's actually going to progress and carry on this big storyline they're having. And that's how I feel about AEW.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Not telling stories. And I was interested. I was following it 3 years ago with the Inner Circle Pinnacle storyline. I thought that had potential, but I think in the end they messed that up. I think where they went wrong in the end was the heels should have went over at the end. They, the Pinnacle won that War Games match, what they call Blood and Guts. Then the Inner Circle won the rematch, and then what was that, Stadium Stampede or something like that?
Yeah,
and then they won. I think they won the final match as well, and then that was it. That was I think the problem there was that Pinnacle should have been more strong. They should have been just like when Evolution started, going through guys mid-match, two random guys fighting, jump them, beat the shit out of them. They didn't establish them as being real strong heels. And then a few weeks in, it was the whole thing where they got the shit kicked out of them from the Inner Circle, and MJF was getting his head flushed down the toilet. So they really did mess up a lot of stuff, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to criticize him, but that's the curse of working with Chris Jericho, because whenever someone's getting hot, Jericho will try and get in the feud of that person. You've seen it with Orange Cassidy. When Orange Cassidy was really hot, Jericho wanted that. MJF managed to escape it, but at the same time, I did not enjoy his world title run, especially when they turned him babyface. I think it ruined his character. And who else? Like everyone in the Inner Circle, what are they doing now? Swagger's gone, or Hager, whatever you want to call him. Sammy Guevara's gets suspended every time. LAX, they're gone. And everyone who works with Jericho in that company ends up worse off for it. So there is a bit of a curse with Jericho and AEW, but they struggle to book heels strong. It's like Swerve now. I don't know if Swerve is a heel or babyface.
I know.
And
He's ripping into Osprey about his wife and his kids. That's not what a face would do.
yeah, but fans are cheering for him. And I find that with AEW's online fans, for example, you have to compare them with WWE because they're the two biggest companies in North America. WWE, you know who your heels and your faces are, and you know who you don't like. So I don't like Solo. As a heel, I don't want him to win matches because I want a babyface to beat him, for example. But with AEW and with the fans online, they seem to cheer for like everyone. Doesn't matter if they're a heel or a face. It's like it's a great match. It's a great match, and they don't seem to get pissed off if someone loses because they're happy that the other person wins. So there's no characters because all they care about is just the match.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it's weird. I mean, they enjoy it, but I don't know. It's like WrestleMania. Everyone wanted Cody to win because Roman Reigns was the big heel, and we wanted Cody to finally win, and he won it. But and it's like now, he's feuding with Solo, and we want Cody to win because he's the big baby face of the company. But you look at AEW, it's like I don't know who the big baby face is, and I don't think there is one, and there's no big heels. They're just restless.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they rushed it with Swerve Strickland. I don't think he was quite ready yet to be the top guy, be a world champion, and maybe within a year, 2 years, maybe. But I definitely think they rushed that. Just looking at some comments here. Davros says Jericho learning tree gimmick is nails on the chalkboard. It's go away heat. Yeah, I would agree there. Nate Dizzle, they even wasted the Tony Khan attack, did nothing with that storyline. The guy shows
Yeah.
up on TV with a neck brace and a goofy grin. Yeah, that's a big thing. I mean, Tony should have been doing something then if they're going to do that with him. And then now they're just doing this thing with Elite, and the Elite are kind of partly running the show, but Tony Khan, I guess, is supposed to be working remotely. It's just there's just nothing there that you can really sink your teeth into. Nothing that interesting, right?
Well, that was another thing, and I mean, Renee, he's entitled to criticize it because he's in the business. But like you mentioned, they've done that fucking power drive, Meltzer driver, whatever it's called, to Tony Khan. Tony Khan's what, 5'2", maybe, 100 pounds soaking wet. So, he turns up the next night, he's got the neck brace on, he's got the big goofy grin, he's like this with the neck brace. I'm like, for someone who's been a fan for wrestling for a long time, surely to God you would know how to like at least sell it. But then they done a similar attack to Kenny Omega the following week. I believe it was the following week or a couple of weeks after. And the next week, and so they do the attack to Omega, who's a trained wrestler, and you see him the following week in the hospital bed selling it. So is this telling us that Tony Khan's tougher than Kenny Omega? And we haven't seen Kenny Omega since. Just
Right?
trying to
Yeah.
make sense of it.
Oh god, yes, so many things that are nonsensical that you just you're left scratching your head. It's unfortunate, and I mean, there's some good things. I think to be fair, Tony Storm character is quite interesting and quite entertaining, but there's not much though. There really isn't, and it's a shame because I was at one point when they started in 2019, I was following AEW more than I was following WWE. I wanted to get into AEW, but I think they really just messed it up. I think very much the honeymoon period is over. It seemed to be all rainbows and everybody gets along backstage. First couple of years anyway, but now that's totally that perception has been shattered. And well, staying on AEW, here's a question. Well, AEW related. There was all that stuff what happened with Brawl Out with CM Punk in 2022. Overall, what was your thoughts on that? And what's your thoughts on CM Punk in general?
So when we had the big summer of Punk back at, what was it, 2013? Like I was all behind it. Like I was a CM Punk fan. But like since doing interviews, and I've interviewed quite a few wrestlers now, and a lot of people's work with Punk, and they've all got the same opinion. Like he is he's for himself. I hate using the word mark, but they've all said like he's a mark for himself and stuff. And everywhere he's gone, everywhere he's been involved in some sort of trouble. So I knew that. Now, in saying that, I watched the All Out footage, and it was stupid to begin with. But for Tony Khan to fire his biggest star over that, when he said in all these years of attending wrestling shows, he's never felt threatened for his life. After that, after seeing that footage, I'm like, really, Tony? So that you fired your biggest star, your biggest merch seller because of that. So that was stupid. Me personally, I think I think Punk wanted to go out anyway, and he's friends with Daniel Brian Danielson, whatever you want to call him these days. Sorry, I use the WWE slave names. I can't help
I
it.
was getting mixed up the other day. I couldn't even get the names said right. I know.
It's like people could say calling Edge Adam Copeland. I'm like, it's Edge. I've been
Yeah.
calling him Edge for 20 odd years.
Right.
Anyway, um, Punk's friends with Brian Danielson. So Brian Danielson is part of the disciplinary committee. You know full well Punk's gone to Danielson's like, come on, just fire me. I don't want to be here. He was. I spoke to Mason Mansour, and they told me that Punk was in WWE months, if not a year before that, backstage saying hello, making friends with everyone. So it is. So by the sounds of it, he wanted out for a long time, and I think that's what happened. But I think it was very, very stupid for Tony to let Punk go. And yeah, Punk's only wrestled the Rumble match, but still he's making these appearances and he's creating great television. Arguably, the feud with McIntyre has been one of the best feuds not involving a title for years.
One of them, yeah. It's been really good because you do believe that these guys actually have heat, even though they probably get along fine backstage. There's no real issues there, but they have you believe though that they despise one another, and the back and forth with Punk and McIntyre. You know when they were kind of like I don't want to say off script, but there was maybe a bit of ad lib in there, and they're cutting one another off
Yeah,
on that Raw. Oh, that was amazing. And then Seth
that's what
Rollins
we need.
comes out, and it's not quite the same. You know what I mean? I think it was
Yeah.
like when Punk McMahon had the contract thing for Punk Cena Money in the Bank. The Punk McMahon shit was good. Cena comes out, not quite the same. You know what I mean? It was that same kind of vibe.
Yeah, that's the thing with Punk. Love him or hate him, you actually believe him when he's involved in these angles because you know he's difficult person to work with from all accounts I've heard. So when you're hearing these jabs go back and forth with a McIntyre, with the contract with Vince, you can believe it with him. And like I said, I kind of soured on Punk for a long time, but I have to say, since coming back, he's definitely got me entertained. And don't get me wrong, I was pissed off that he screwed Drew because I wanted Drew to win. But hopefully Drew gets his moment again. But no, I'm enjoying it. But yeah, Tony Khan firing Punk, that was stupid. And I think Osprey came out the other day, said AEW's in the rebuilding phase. I'm like, rebuilding from what? You're only 5 years old. What are you rebuilding from? Unless he was referring to All Out, but I hope they do good. Tony Khan seems like a really, really nice person, but I also believe he gets taken advantage of. Very, very similar to Dixie Carter.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, if MJF is really getting paid 50 million a year, I mean, that is ridiculous.
Fair
I
play
mean, I
to him.
don't think even is Roman. I don't think Roman Reigns is even getting paid that much at WWE, right?
No,
I
I
think
mean,
it's
who's the top paid guy? Probably Brock.
yeah.
But I don't think he was getting that.
No.
No, I
It,
mean, if MJF is getting that, then God bless him.
yeah. No, not hating on the guy. I mean, it's a crazy world that we're kind of living in today with the way Tony Khan acts. Because as much as people said about Dixie Carter, Money Mark, she
Hmm.
wasn't acting like this stupid. I mean, yeah,
No, she wasn't that
I
stupid.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Tony. Hardworking guy, multiple businesses he's involved in, but he does kind of act like a total dork. I don't know how else to put it. And well, we've got Nate Dizzle saying Tony Khan heel turn, the only thing that could save it. Yeah, I felt he should have been a heel authority owner on screen. What do you think?
I mean, go full Herb Abrams. Everyone thinks he's on cocaine anyway, so just look at Herb Abrams and just try not to go full at Herb Abrams, but take some aspects from that character. But depends how it would work for him. If for it to work for him, he would need like a stable, I guess, or a group to make it work. But I don't know. I don't know if it would work, to be honest, because I don't think people's actually invested in Tony as a character. I think people's more invested on what stupid decisions he makes, and what stupid comments he makes. I guess you could turn that into a character where we've just got this, delusional boss who thinks he's doing right all the time. But I can understand what they're doing because people don't like the books anyway. But unfortunately, with the books, people they don't like the books because they just don't want to watch the books. I think that's actors grown very, very stale. But I don't know what to do with AEW. I mean, they got Jake the Snake Roberts under contract. I'm hoping to be bringing him back on the show soon. One of the greatest minds in the history of wrestling, and they don't use him at all. You're telling me you can't have Jake at least do promo class for some of these wrestlers who needs that help? Apparently, Bret Hart offered his services to be a producer or an agent, and it was like, no, we've got so and so, Orange Cassidy, and this person. I'm thinking you're not accepting Bret Hart's offer to be a producer and agent, and that there's no hope for him.
Right. Yeah, I mean, especially the FTR. I mean, they have that guy up on a pedestal like he's a bloody demigod. You think so many other people their talent would love to have a Bret Hart there, surely.
FTR be close to leaving as well. They won't be far behind, especially with Triple H doing stuff now. They was booked really well under Triple H and NXT. I understand why they left, especially with Vince, and that a lot of wrestlers left for that reason. But with Triple H, I love Triple H or hate him. He's done some questionable stuff in the past, and got himself in them positions. But he's doing a good job now. Not perfect by any means. There's still some shit, but he's doing better than. There was a dark period of WWE between 2017 and 2022, maybe 2021. Before the start of the Bloodline story, really. So we had like a good 3 or 4 years where WWE was just terrible to watch. Probably even longer than that. But Triple H, he's doing a lot of things right, and a lot of them NXT people. I mean, Andrade, the first chance he got, he's returned to the company. You've seen Cody see what's happening. He's jumped ship. So FTR, who I would say they like Triple H, but obviously Cody's there now. They love Punk. Punk's back now. There's legit heat between them and the Bucks. They don't like the Bucks, so you can imagine when the contract does come up, they'll make the jump sooner rather than later.
Right, I suppose, and as well with Vince being out of the picture, Vince was a fan of them. I think Triple H is more of an FTR guy. Then that definitely could be a possibility. Richard, this might be Richard from Cafe De Rene, looking good. James looking real good. That's never going away. That is it? Never.
No, that's just. I mean, we've got t-shirts for sale on Shopify at Cafe De Rene. Everyone looking good, boys. So some of the stories we have on the cafe, especially by Paul, which quick plug. Renee's been off for a couple of weeks, recharging the batteries, desperately needed. I'm hoping to take a couple of weeks off myself soon. But this coming Friday, Renee does. It's our 200th live stream, so Renee's returning though. So Paul's joining with him as well. So that's gonna be a big celebration this Friday. But yeah, I think that Michael Hayes shower story is probably on the Mount Rushmore Cafe de Rene stories. Just Paul's a great storyteller, and yeah, so some of the quotes like "looking good, boys." That's "Hey jobbers." That's another one as well. We've got a few, but No, it's kiff me, Randy. We had to
Yeah.
delete some videos because of lawsuits. We've been
Oh
sued.
wow.
We've nearly been sued like 3 times.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Was that something involving Jim Cornette? I don't. You don't have to get into specifics. Was Cornette involved in that?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, so one of the people we used to have on the show, Kenny Bolan, great guy. He just needs to learn when to mute his microphone sometimes to let other people speak. But I like Kenny. But yeah, Kenny told his story. It was the first time we had Kenny on the show, and it was when we used to do recorded interviews. And honestly, that was the best episode of Kenny. He told some great stories, and he was really good. Um, but he told a story regarding Jim, and he told a few stories regarding Jim, and I'm trying to work out which one they got upset about. Now, he did tell the story about Jim's co-host. I think he got hot over that, and then there was I think there was a story between Cornette's wife and an incident with Brock Lesnar. It might have been that one even. It might have been the story between Cornette and Russo, and the reason why Russo got a restraining order. It could be any one of them stories. But anyway, certain people who gets advertised on Cornette's show contacted us, and it was like, I'm like, okay, this is didn't realize this was a thing, because being from the UK, defamation isn't a big thing, and like people just throwing out lawsuits and shit. But apparently in America, it is. Um, so obviously, said apologize. I'd be happy to delete the content. I can only offer me apologies, even though me and Renee said fuck all. It was all Kenny. So anyway, so that was that. And then there's been a couple of instances with some different people. So you have to be careful, really. Which is stupid. You'd think, free speech and all that, but I guess it's not a thing. But even if you're telling the truth, you still have to be careful. And the problem is, and it's not being arrogant, when you start getting a bigger audience and more people hears the story and spreads the story, it becomes a bigger deal. So yeah, so we do have to be careful. Sometimes Renee can, and it's no fault of his, it's just the way he speaks. He's very honest. But sometimes I will have to pull him up on something. I'm like, yeah, Renee, just think about this next time we talk about this. And so sometimes I have to trim something out. And I think that's why he's thankful he's got me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the thing with Renee, I feel a similar type of personality in the sense that Renee just remembers stories like things from years ago and just gets into the fine detail. Like I feel like Renee is one of those type of guys he doesn't forget, and I believe most of the time that when Renee's telling a story, it's true. I know in wrestling they say never let the truth get in the way in the good story. So a lot of people talent when they're on these podcasts can embellish things. But Renee, I think usually when he tells it like it is, he doesn't sugarcoat things. If he didn't like somebody, he'll say it. If he did really like somebody, he'll say that too. And that's why I quite appreciate Renee. I'd watched some of his interviews before you guys started, with Hannibal and the RF Shoot interview. And Renee's one of the more open guys in the business, because I think what it is, a lot of these guys, the talent, they're waiting for that call back, aren't they?
Yes,
That's the thing, right?
100%. They do, and even not even WWE. I've had some people with say AEW. They mention AEW. Yeah, it was good to pop up on them couple of shows and whatever. Then afterwards, they'd be like, "Yeah, AEW backstage, terrible. They haven't got a clue what they're doing." So yeah, and yeah, WWE. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of people who's still waiting for that phone call. Renee, I don't think he cares. So he's obviously he's inherited some businesses from his father, who sadly passed away, which was quite sad. So he's inherited that, so he's looking after them, and he does his own shows when he's happy to do them, and the cafe's doing okay. So he, I, it's not so much financially for AW for WWE that he wants to go, if he wanted to go back. I don't think that bothers him. But the thing he says he does miss is the crowds, like especially the size of the crowds that WWE gets, which you can imagine. Like, don't get me wrong, he does these indie shows now, and you'll get like say, I don't know, 700 or 800, maybe 1,000 people, and for them little towns, it's great, but it's nothing compared to a WWE crowd or even an AEW crowd, for example. So he says that is the thing he does miss. I mean, I guess if the phone call came, he would entertain the idea and like, right, see, let's have a conversation. But I don't think he would ever go out of his way to be like desperately chasing a job in WWE, which I respect him for. So yeah, that's one of the things I think people likes is that he is honest and he'll say it how it is. And like you said, there is people that doesn't. And it's great when we've got, for example, say a Kid Cash on the show because he doesn't give a fuck. Sorry, can we curse on here?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we're past the watershed hour. So if you got your kids watching, then you're great parents. I try not to let my kids watch me. But yeah, so when we've had like Kid Cash on the show who's doing great for himself, he's in the construction industry and he's doing very, very well for himself. He doesn't give a crap about getting a phone call or anything. So they are the best guess. Well, guess who's got nothing to lose, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And I can remember, I think it was summer 2022, and it was Renee, yourself, Kid Cash, Paul London on a live stream. And that was a really good one. And I can remember at one point they're talking about like the art of selling when you're a baby face with the long hair. And you remember you have that moment, you're kind of like, I can't believe it. I'm in a conversation with three
Yeah.
guys in the business, Renee, Kid Cash, Paul London, and they talk with the hair and the selling, while having long hair. That it's kind of, you must have a few of those pinch me moments that you're
Yeah,
talking to these guys that you watched on TV, right?
you do. I mean, don't get me wrong, you do get used to it to a degree. Um, Not disrespectful, but when it's say someone who is on the lower portion of the card, it's like, yeah, it's great. Just have a chat to them. But when you do start talking to people who you have watched for many years, I mean, I'm 35. I've been watching wrestling since I've been 3 or 4 years old, so well over 30 years now. And when you've got Jake on the Jake the Snake Roberts on the show, and I remember talking to my dad because my dad was a wrestling fan. He doesn't really watch it now, but he watched Hulkamania era. So he's the reason I became a fan because he had the videotapes about first ever wrestling event I watched was Rumble '91. So I said to my dad, I'm like, Dad, I'm talking to Jake Snake Roberts this week. He went, you what? I said, I'm talking to Jake Snake Roberts this week. um, and Jake's there, like on the screen. Renee's there. It's weird as well because like I was a fan of Renee growing up as well because I thought he had a great character and I love that feud with Cena. And now me and Renee, I'm not just saying it, we are kind of like best pals. We talk to each other like every day, and it's weird. And like when we got Kurt Angle on the show, I'm like, I'm talking to Kurt Angle. Like, where does this stop? But yeah, but when there's a group of them, like you said, when we had like Kid Cash, Paul, and Renee, and I think there was, and I think we've done some where RVD's with us at the same time as well. Even they're telling all their stories, and all of them, betraying them's been in the business for 100 years, you could say. I'm sat there just a wrestling fan, and I'm like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Um, so you do have to pinch yourself, and I don't take it for granted because, and especially like I've had a lot, even with my own channel, like I interviewed like a lot of wrestlers in the divas who I've had crushes on, for example. I'm like, I'm talking to Candice Michelle, talking to Dawn Marie here. 13-year-old James would be doing cartwheels right now. But no, it's a privilege to be able to speak with all these people. It does help that it's Renee's name on the thing because it's obviously it's a lot better easier getting guests when it's someone who they've actually worked with. So yeah, no, it's great, and there is a lot of pinch me moments, especially like I said when it was like Kurt Angle and Jake Snake Roberts.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And that's an interesting point you were saying about it's quite easier with Renee to get guests. Is that ever a problem where guests are wanting a certain amount of money to ever get on, or has that never been an issue for you?
That's a good question. So I think it's I mean, normally everyone's just happy just to come on, and they're happy to talk, because a lot of the people we've had on is people who've spoken to Renee, or we've had some, like, say, indie talents come on, or even some people from, say, OVW. We had a couple of girls from OVW come on lately, and we can offer promotion to them as well, the audience. I don't think we've ever been asked to pay for someone. I don't believe. I might be wrong. So don't get me wrong. Like, say, Paul, for example, or say Jason, we do look after them. Because obviously, we respect people's time as well, and Paul's on more often than not. So we look after them, and obviously, I get looked after as well. But yeah, it's but no, I don't. Yeah, not a lot of people's actually asked us for money. And don't get me wrong, if it was like a Hulk Hogan, for example, I know a lot of people don't like Hulk Hogan, but if it was a Hulk Hogan, be like, yeah, brother, I could do it for like $200. I would say to Renee, if that happened, I'll be like to Renee, I'm like, yeah, let's pay it because it's an investment. Because look at the views we would get from a Hulk Hogan, for example. So yeah, it kind of depends on the person, and if I feel like we could make our money back off clips and views as well. So you have to, even though it is a podcast, we do it for fun. At the same time, it is like a business as well.
Right. Oh yeah, and you got to treat it like a business, yeah, and not be caught up in that kind of like, oh, I'm marking out for somebody that I used to be a big fan of. You just got to treat it like a business and make some money. And I mean, I'm relatively small. I'm small time, but a couple of years back, I did try and reach out to get guests. I won't name this person, but there was a certain woman that used to be in ECW who was charging, I think, $200 for an hour. And to me, that was no way. No, I don't think you're worth that much. Sorry. And it was a struggle to get people because, again, I at this point maybe had 1,000 subscribers. I came close to trying to get PCO. In English, politely declined. I did maybe reach out to maybe about 30 people, maybe around Impact AEW level, but a lot of people, just didn't respond to the email. It is what it is. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of overall with Cafe De Rene. I try and check in most weeks to the live stream, and Rene, I think, is a super cool guy. Jason Sensation, I think that was very shitty what happened with him. The story that he was telling
Yeah.
with Kevin Kelly, how he kind of fucked him about with his career. I think Michael Hayes as well was another one. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, Kevin Kelly. Not Kevin Kelly. I think it was Kevin Dunn actually.
Well, Kevin Dunn too. Yeah, as well as Kevin Kelly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Kevin Dunn who had him like waiting basically all day, and Jason said he just saw these cars leave the arena or whatever, and he was just sat there. I mean, there's ribs, but then there's just like, I don't know, just like horrible ribs. And unfortunately, Jason, I love Jason as well, but Jason, I guess he comes across as quite naive. And the only reason I'm saying that is because Jason's harmless, and Jason believes the best in everyone, but sometimes that can go against you a little bit, and you can be taken advantage of. And unfortunately, I think that's what's happened to Jason, and it's a shame. I mean, thankfully, Jason's doing fine now, and with Cafe, he knows he's got a group of friends that do think a lot of him, and look out for the best for him. But yeah, it's a shame. But yeah, I mean, some of the stories I've heard, and especially like off camera, what Renee's told me, yeah, a lot of the wrestlers these days should be thankful how the culture is in WWE now. I mean, I've just seen a clip of Sasha Banks, and she complained. She's always complaining. She complained that WWE didn't want her to do the Mandalorian or something because they wanted her to work the house shows. So I'm like, you're upset because your employers wanted you to go to work. So
Right.
if that's what you can complain about now compared to the hazing and the outright bullying what used to happen, you really don't know what you complain about these days.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, you're a big draw. I mean, I went to a house show in 2019 here in Aberdeen, the last one here in Aberdeen. Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks was the main event. Not the big, huge draw, but the women's division, the Revolution at the time, it was really popular. So fair enough. But yeah, Sasha Banks is somebody that, her attitude is a little bit questionable. The whole thing about complaining about fans, waiting for autographs at airports. I mean, that's just part and parcel of being a celebrity. And I know not everybody is responds in kind to that. I've heard like stories like Usos and are not actually the best for dealing with fans at airports, but it's just part and parcel of being a celebrity, and they need to
Yeah.
really, the moment that people stop following you, then you'll be like, oh shit, what, where are they all gone? You know what I mean? It's like celebrities complaining about the paparazzi following, but the day they all stop following you, stop checking on you, then you'll feel like something's missing. You
I mean,
know?
it's true. I mean, if you're gonna be in the public and they're getting paid very well for it, it's part and parcel for it. I mean, it's to a lot lesser degree. I went to Clash with my kids in Cardiff a couple of years ago. Loved it, and a few people came up to me saying, "James, is he James Cafe De Rene?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Oh, mate, can I get a picture?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I felt, don't get me wrong, it wasn't all the time, but it was, it was a few times. But yeah, and I would imagine if I was a wrestler and I started getting requests of pictures, I would enjoy it. Now, I can understand if they're like extremely tired, especially if it's like 2 a.m. in the morning, for example. But yeah, it's part of the job now, like, and same with actors or musicians. And like you said, you have to treat your fans with respect, because if you don't, and if they stop caring for you, then that's on you. So, yeah, it's unfortunately that's sometimes some wrestlers can develop an ego, and unfortunately, Sasha Banks, Mercedes, she comes across as someone with a massive ego, but then she's with a company now that is actually catering towards that ego.
Yeah, and that's part of it. Maybe growing up as Snoop Dogg's cousin, there was a sense of entitlement with that. The huge rap star having it as your cousin. It's crazy some of these connections that you have with people, and I think because Snoop Dogg's related, he's cousins with Brandy, the singer, and Ray J. The guy that the singer that had the sex tape with Kim Kardashian.
Right.
It's weird, some of these connections, like a lot of the 6 degrees of separation type thing. Just look at some comments. Davros said Missy Hyatt he was thinking that's the woman that wanted $200. No, it wasn't. It was a certain woman that was referred to as a queen. I'll leave that clue.
Oh yeah.
You probably know who.
We've had issues with that person.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
it's interesting to say. Yeah, on you go. Yeah.
No, we had an interview with Dawn Marie, who's lovely. And Dawn Marie said some stuff and some people got upset.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And maybe with that, that's maybe a three sides to every story type thing. Because it was interesting because I heard what Francine, oh, so I've let her name out. I've heard what she had to say about Dawn, that she was quite stiff in the ring. But I'd also heard from an interview that Tony Wilson did. She said that Miss Dawn Marie was very stiff for her in the ring as well.
Hmm.
So maybe there was something to that there. I don't know.
Possibly, yeah. Fair enough. You just mentioned someone, and so there was a diva when I had my own channel, and I requested an interview. I forgot if it was for $1,500 or for $5,000. It was one of the two.
Goodness me.
It's
Yeah.
definitely the biggest. I'm not saying who it was, but it's an XWE diva who's very popular. But that's what they requested. But then Jonah, he does the show with us. He does Rewind, Recap, Relive. He he emailed like a famous tag team member who puts people through tables, but he's not the cool one, the bully one. And I think they requested like $700 or $800. So yeah, there is some crazy sums.
Right. And it's the same type of characters that are a little bit kind of questionable. And yeah, I'm not a fan of B-Ray. I'm not a fan of
Yeah.
B-Ray. Nate Dizzle saying Mercedes Mona's cringe. I kind of agree with that. Adam is asking, do you think Brock Lesnar is coming back to wrestling? Well, what do you think on that, James? Do you think he'll come back?
Yeah, eventually. He's too big of a star. I think a lot of it's got to do with this ongoing case with Vince and how involved Brock was. I mean, well, it wasn't mentioned by name, heavily implied. I mean, Brock actually didn't actually do anything. There was a couple of messages. Apparently, a flight got cancelled, and that's why it prevented stuff from happening. It'd be interesting what the household is like now with Sable. But if the very latest he'll return will be next year at SummerSlam because it's a 2-night event in Minneapolis. That's Brock that's Brock's territory. So 2-night event. He's gonna be part of that one way or another. I kind of miss Brock, to be honest with you. Like I know he only made like the odd appearance, but you do miss him, like because the guy is a superstar. I hate using that word, but he is. So I do think he will return. I don't know when, but I would definitely say that would be the very latest when he does return.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I just don't know with this stuff with Brock Lesnar and what you're saying about Sable. I don't think Sable's somebody that's probably on social media. Maybe she has a Facebook with close friends. I just wonder if she found out when the rest of the world did about this. And like with Lesnar, I don't know. I mean, unless there's all this stuff and it's going to be a big thing, a big court case, and then he's called. I don't know. Maybe he can ride this, and then it'll be all forgotten about. Well, all on his part, it's all forgotten about with Lesnar. He returns to the Minneapolis, makes a triumphant return next year. Yeah, that would be a big thing. Minneapolis SummerSlam 2-night event. Oh no, that would be something right there. One question I've got. So you've. I take it. Have you been to quite a few number of house shows over the years in here in the UK? Have you? Oh, you haven't.
No, it's crazy because I would have loved to, but I've never had the time to go to any British shows or indie shows. Like I've only ever been to 2 WWE shows. One when I was 17, so that's back in 2006. It was a house show in Nottingham. Me and my kid brother went, loved it, and then Clash a couple of years ago, me two boys, we went. I struggle to get time to go to these events now. Now, if me boys said to me, "Oh, there's a," because my boys ain't big wrestling fans, they enjoy what I do, and if I've got it on the TV, they will watch it, but they won't go out of their way to watch it. Not like me, like growing up, I would try and get every video cassette tape I could. And I just love wrestling. People say to me, actually, what do you love more, football or wrestling? And I'm like, I don't know, that's tough. I'm like, with wrestling, I don't get my heart broken like I do with Liverpool. So that's why I like my fictional storylines of wrestling. But so my boys don't love wrestling like I do. But like I said, if it's on and I'm watching it, they like Cody. They do like Cody Rhodes. So they will sit down and watch it. But yeah, for attending shows, not many I would like to. But it's weird. I always seem to be busy or like I've always got something. And like I said, especially now with a family, I will struggle now to make it to any shows. Rene is coming over here in September. He's doing an extended European tour. So he's coming to the UK. So we will be finally meeting up because we've never met each other. So we will do an in-person cafe. I have said I will take him for a Nando's. So we will bring out a video. Rene Dupree reviews Nando's. So if we're lucky, if we can get a sponsorship by Nando's, that would be awesome. Get one of them special black unlimited cards. But so yeah, so we're looking forward to that, and I guess I will, attend the show what he'll be on. But yeah, but that'll be an exception. But yeah, with my family now, and that takes all my time, and yeah, I struggle now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what you were saying before about struggling to watch a whole episode, I was that way as well. I when it went from Sky to BT Sports in 2020, I have Sky, don't have BT. That was it. I wasn't really following it frequently anymore with WWE. And I think a big thing I know from your experience being a fan, but I know you're saying the experience going to house shows and indie shows. It may be the indie shows you maybe didn't miss much because back in the day it could be quite hokey, the indie shows in the UK with the impersonator Kane and Undertaker and stuff like that. But it was quite fond memories I had growing up being a fan. One thing, because it's one of the guys in the cafe, Paul London, he was a guy in a 2005 house show signing autographs with fans afterwards. And he was the only talent to take time to speak to the fans. And I thought he was a real class act for doing that. And telling a story as well about Rene Dupree. And it was something about maybe how he looked with the photograph. And maybe he had the blonde streaks in his hair. I can't remember. He was telling a particular story involving Rene. But yeah, Paul London was a class act, though, there. He's one of the good guys. But I mean, for you though, what was your first memories of what? So you're going back to 1991. You were following wrestling. Do you have a particular first memory of watching WWF?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was my first memory. So I was 3 or 4. So I was born in 89, so it must have been like 1993, 1994, give or take. It must have been like 1993. But me dad had a lot of the Hulkamania era, I call it the Hulkamania era videos about. So that's what I grew up watching. But I would say my first memory is Rumble 91. It's the earliest I can remember. And just Hulk Hogan eliminating the Earthquake at the end, and Brian Knobbs being the final third person, which is so random to think about these days.
I wonder why. Maybe a certain close friend of his that was there in their match room.
Yeah, looking back, and I do miss them days. Like, just I do. That's one of the biggest shames about getting older, and especially with the internet being more exposed to the business, because you know everything that's pretty much happening behind the scenes now. I do miss just. I'm not saying I'm not just a fan. I'm still a fan, but I do miss kayfabe. Like, I believe wrestling was real till I was like 10, I think. And my uncle said to me, it's fake, right? I'm like, don't be daft. It's like, yeah, that's fake. I'm like, shut up. And then it's like it finally dawned upon me. But I missed them early days of wrestling. And like growing up big massive Bret Hart fan as well. I actually believe what he done was real. And that's how I really got into Bret Hart. But yeah, I would say that Rumble 91 is probably my first memory of wrestling. It's it must be, definitely.
Wow, yeah. And I think back in those days, like the Royal Rumble 92 that Flair won, that was like a stacked roster at the time as well. I remember a friend of mine at school giving me a shot at Rumble 93. Even then, fairly stacked talent. I know it was a bit hokey with Giant Gonzalez and that stupid furry outfit coming out.
I loved Giant Gonzalez at the time.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, they put him over as like a scary motherfucker, though, and he beat the shit out of Undertaker. Taker got zero offense, and yeah, I think in the end though, you just couldn't work for shit. I know Taker's been talking about how he had a real hard time working with him, and that Gonzalez, I think, proper kind of like Mabel did kind of fuck him up when they got in the ring. But for me, I'll tell you a bit about me. I started watching in 2000, so that's the peak of the Attitude Era. This was when Austin was just out, and it was Rock was the champion at the time. And that was probably one of the better times, I think, to become a fan of wrestling. I think one of my first memories was Too Cool dancing in the ring after a match. And that's going to stick out to you, a guy with the bleach blonde spiked hair and the guy with the big ass and the thong. And Attitude Era, it was just special. I mean, I get sick of people talking about this era like it's on par with the Attitude Era. I don't think anything, you might feel the Federation years, the Golden Age was better. I don't know. I just feel like nothing can really beat the Attitude Era from around, I don't know, maybe let's say 98 to like 2000 time. How do you feel on that?
Yeah, I mean, to me, you're correct. Attitude Era is peak because, yeah, there wasn't that many great matches. But like I said, matches to me takes the backseat. I appreciate a great match. Like I said, my favorite wrestler is Bret Hart. So obviously I enjoy great wrestling. But just all the storylines. And at that time, so 2000, like between 97 to 2001, you could say 98 to 2001. Well, beginning of 2001. It was just cool to be a wrestling fan. You didn't need to be a wrestling fan to enjoy wrestling. To me, back then, and even back in the old days, people went to these shows because it was like something to do. It's like, oh, who wants to go and watch wrestling this weekend? Oh, yeah, that sounds great. And it was mainstream. It was just so accepted. And you saw these crossover music videos and things like you saw, like, especially like American TV shows dropping wrestling references all the time, especially like Stone Cold, for example, all these big advertisements and stuff. I think people, and I mean, we're going back now. Attitude Era is 20 years ago, which makes me questions my, existence, like how old I'm getting now, my mortality. But it's people. I think the people that shits on the Attitude Era is people that wasn't around during the Attitude Era,
Yeah.
and not was there questionable things said back then, and like angles and storylines. Of course there was, but today we live in a different climate, a different world to what we did back then. Even though it was only 20 years, a lot of things has changed since then. Not all for the better, may I add. Some, yes, not all for the better. But no, the Attitude Era was just peak mainstream, and same with the Hulkamania era. Hulk Hogan had his own cartoon. Um, people forget how huge Hulk Hogan was back then. But yeah, Attitude Era was definitely the biggest time in wrestling. WrestleMania X7 remains my favorite pay-per-view because that was just a peak of wrestling. But yeah, today's wrestling, the athleticism's better. The Bloodline storyline's great, but besides that, everything is okay or like decent. But back in the Attitude Era, so I watched a couple of years ago. I watched every episode of Raw from '97. I enjoyed it every week. I'm currently going through '98. Mark Mero is my fucking highlight every show. He is so entertaining, and he's just a mid card guy who, after his Wildman days, didn't come anywhere close to a title. Can you say
Right.
that
Yeah.
about any other mid carder these days? Maybe a Chad
Right.
Gable at stretch.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a gradual storyline with Mark Meadow getting more jealous and possessive over his wife, Sable, which I don't think they
Yeah,
ever acknowledged on screen, did they? Don't think so. But
it's it played into the storyline. Like I think Mark was actually happy about it backstage because he was married to her and he was getting more money. So he's happy about it back then. But then eventually she became so big of a star, and then she returned, and obviously, my favorite Mark Mero story is when he found out his wife Sable was like seeing another wrestler. So allegedly, he went down. He went down to the show, or he started finding out who it was. Then he found out it was Brock, and he says, "You soon learn how quick you can learn forgiveness." So
right, that's
he
when
made
he
his
turned
peace
to
and he let her
religion,
go her
right,
own
and
way.
became motivational preacher type. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I need to get Mero on the show. He's definitely someone gonna have to reach out to. He would be great to have on the show.
Oh yeah, yeah. And you know what? I think Meadow is one of the good guys. We're joking a bit about that, but I know with Meadow, he maybe tells the story a little bit different from how things actually happened. I mean, he tells the story. I don't know if you've heard this in a shoot he did, that it did end on good terms with himself and Rena Sable, and that they actually, when they got divorced, they went to the courthouse and were walking hand in hand. I don't know if
Hmm.
you heard that.
No.
No, yeah. So I don't know if this is maybe just certain stories that people tell to make themselves look good to save face, or the real truth behind that. I mean, there's a lot of sketchy stuff there. I mean, going back to Vince McMahon with the stuff with Sable and that whole storyline with 2003 when she was, his main squeeze. Let's put it. I mean, my guess is probably something did go on behind the scenes with Vince and Sable. I certainly wouldn't be shocked if that did happen.
Well,
Would you
she
be?
sued him, didn't she? Because of apparently some sort of inappropriate action, stuff happening, and she
Yeah.
won. Well, she got a payout from it anyway. But
Yeah.
then few years, so that was what was that after WrestleMania 15? So 15 must have been 99. We're talking, I believe. Yeah, 99. So she was gone not too long after that. They turned her heel, and then she was gone, and she sued them over like something regarding that, and she won or she got a payout, and well then she ended up coming back, and what did Vince do? Make her his sex slave essentially.
Yeah.
So was it based in reality and some truth? We don't know, but makes you think.
It does make you think, doesn't it? Very strange. And some of the interactions, even at that time when Lesnar was a heel aligned with Vince, and you see them in the back with Sable, some kind of odd like exchanges there. Um, I mean, I think it was Too Cold Scorpion. Christ, he was arrested for stabbing a guy,
Yeah.
which we say was in self-defense. I think he told the story about Vince at a bar with the boys, and he said, and talking about Sable, he said, "I'm gonna f that bitch."
Oh wow.
I'm going to find one way or another. I'm going to do that. That's what he said. Maybe this was 96 or 97, just when she started. And
Right.
yeah, Vince has a thing. I know you've had women on the show, former divas, and I mean you've heard the stories, right? I mean, I don't know if were they open about that on the podcast, or was there maybe messages exchanged afterwards? Did they open up a bit about Vince? Do you feel, or did you think they held back?
Yeah. A lot of them we interviewed before this Vince stuff came out. But then when Paul spoke about Ashley, which was the big story, with Ashley, how according to Paul, Vince was just basically harassing Ashley, and he was knocking her hotel room and stuff. He would get her to go on private flights with himself, and they would have someone at the bottom of, say, the staircase leading up to the plane, like on the lookout. Like I don't know if he said Kevin Dunn. I might be wrong, but someone like that. And so after he told these stories, there was some divas. I'm not going to name them for our respect. Some of the divas sent Paul emails saying thank you for telling that story and telling it how it really happened. Now there is a lot of divas that does make the odd appearances and do go back, rather be reunion shows or anniversary shows. Some of them might be under a Legends contract deal, so stuff like that happens. But the thing is, with a lot of these women, and obviously we mentioned the Me Too stuff earlier, they can tell these stories, but sometimes people won't believe them, which is a shame. But then there might be some of them that just makes up stuff who want to get a bit of press, so you don't know what to believe. So perhaps sometimes they feel like, yeah, maybe it's best just to be quiet.
Yeah.
So
No,
it's
that
an
is,
awkward situation.
it's a big thing. Yeah. I mean, for years and years, that stuff with Weinstein and how he got away with it, and probably police not listening to the victims. And maybe with Weinstein, it was just more who was connected to, always was able to, control the perception with PR and shut people down, crisis managers, what have you. Yeah, but maybe some more women will speak out, hopefully in the future. And
Well, I hate it when, and sorry for cutting you off, I hate it when
oh,
Paul tells these stories and then you get some idiots in the comments saying, well, why didn't you speak up about it earlier? Why didn't you do this and do that? And I'm like, first of all, how do you know that they didn't try? Second of all, you do realize how powerful Vince McMahon is. If these things were true, you know how powerful he is. The guy literally defeated the government in 1993, 1994.
yeah,
You hear the stories about Bill Cosby, for example, and there was like, what, 66 women came forward eventually, over 60 women, and he still ended up outside of prison. He's not, he still ended up, getting released.
yeah,
So, and Harvey Weinstein, took a long time for things like that to actually go forward. So when people like shits on Paul, or say, well, Renee said that was the first time he heard about it, but yeah, it aggravates me because you get these fucking people online like they would do shit if it happened to them, or if something happened to one of their friends, like they would do shit. No, they wouldn't. So when they start shitting on Paul, and Paul's a friend of mine now, I talk to Paul every other day. It's like you won't do anything. You don't know if Paul tried to do stuff, and even if he did, a guy who was like what, a mid carder, just a tag team wrestler, cruiserweight wrestler. No disrespect to Paul, but that's what it was, a tag team wrestler. It wasn't like he was a main eventer. You really think WWE's going to give a shit about this guy, not just bury him and just fire him? So they need to think about that.
No, very good point. And it reminds me of Vince, because the Mr. McMahon character, that's really who he was with the volume turned up. And I can remember him cutting those promos about, I'll get Sunday fired. And they won't work here again, but anywhere else. And I feel that's very much, that's the mindset of people like him, and not a lot of these ruthless, multi-millionaire, billionaire types. And to me, Vince, that was really who he was. Vince, I mean, I'd be surprised if Vince, he just did a lot of his promos off the cuff. He wasn't even a script. He could just do it. He could ad lib. It's the character of Vince. This is the thing. I was conflicted with the whole stuff with Vince McMahon, because I was inspired by Vince in a way to work hard. You can't help respect Vince for what he's done in the business. And he was one of the more entertaining characters, especially from, Pete Keel McMahon from the Attitude Era. So I was very conflicted with that. Overall, what's your thoughts on the stuff with Vince? I mean, I take it you're kind of like, probably more like me, that you believe the victims, you believe Janelle Grant's telling the truth. But, is there a part of you that maybe has a shred of empathy for Vince McMahon as maybe a human being who's probably went through a lot in his life, traumatic childhood? How do you feel on that with Vince?
Yeah, it's tough. And it's kind of tough. Like I said, good friends with Paul. And like what Paul tells me, and I would never doubt Paul. So what he tells me, I can't help but believe him. And it's weird because I loved Vince McMahon. Without Vince McMahon, safe to say, majority of people wouldn't be wrestling fans. Good chance there wouldn't be any wrestling, especially on TV. You have to respect all the work he's done over these years. Rather he's screwed over some other territory owners and stuff like that. That ruthless aggression, that's not a fucking gimmick. That's a thing he lives by. You have to respect it, and like all the work he's put in and stuff, and the years of entertainment he's given us as an on-screen character. Fuck man, everyone hated Mr. McMahon. This was what I was getting back to earlier with, like, say, AEW. There's no one you hate in AEW, but when back then, like, Vince McMahon, you hated him. You wanted Austin to kick his ass every week. It was so believable. Like, I was only a kid back then, but I can imagine for a lot of, say, working class people, blue collar workers and all that, white collars workers, everyone fantasized about, fucking beating the shit out of their boss. It was so relatable, and he capitalized on it. So all these years, I loved Vince because he was just great. But when you hear this stuff happening, it's like you're shocked, but at the same time, you're kind of not shocked. I don't mean to laugh. It's a bit of a coping mechanism, but I don't want this stuff to be true. I don't, and I'm hoping it's not true. But if it is, then it's like, man, you can't help but just lose all respect for the guy. Like you can applaud the character and everything leading up to that point, but then again, apparently this shit's been happening since fucking late 80s, early 90s with the female referee Rita Chatterton, and we had Mario Mancini on, who was a great friend of her, one of her best friends, and like he basically confirmed, was like, yeah, something really did happen. And it's so, and that's the thing as well. Like, that's one instance. If it did happen, it happened. All this stuff that's happened with, allegedly, with this Janelle Grant, this is happening when Vince is in his late 70s, not even like in his 30s or his 40s, like in his late 70s. Has he just gone senile and got dementia or something? Has he become like a Joe Biden? We don't know. So yeah, it's hard. I hope it's not true, but if it is, then if it is, then he deserves whatever's coming his way.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be held accountable, and it could be more than just a civil. This could become a criminal one, and you could very much be going to jail. And
Yeah.
yeah, ultimately, crime always pays, as they say. And yeah, you got to be held accountable. Just going through some comments here. Cara, a member, has been a member for a year. Appreciate you, Cara. C for Cats 23. Davros is saying here, football's a sore subject for moi. Aberdeen were awful last season. So that's my team. That's where I'm from, James. And yeah, we were the
Scotland
bottom
was
end
no
of the league.
better.
Oh god, yeah. We're the bottom end of the league, and I don't know how you're familiar with the history of Aberdeen, James, but in 1983 we beat Real Madrid in the European Cup Winners' Cup. We had Sir
Well,
Alex
Fergie was
Ferguson as the
manager, wasn't
manager.
he?
Sorry,
Fergie was manager, yeah.
Fergie was manager. Yeah, he was manager from 1978 to 1986, and that
Wow.
was pretty much a glory period. Won a few Scottish Cups, won the league, won the European Cup Winners' Cup, won the Super Cup at the time. And yeah, we were a top team, but it's just dominated the Scottish League with Celtic Rangers. And I don't know, do you catch any of the Scottish games where you're at, or
Um,
do you not follow?
I mean, one of my good friends is a Rangers fan, so like he keeps me up to date with what's happening. And I mean, I enjoyed Scottish football in the 90s when you had like the likes of Henrik Larsson playing and Ali McCoist and stuff. Not too familiar with it these days. Like I keep an eye on it because to see who's doing well and stuff. And I kept a little bit of an eye on it when Stevie G was Rangers manager. But yeah, it's now. I mean, similar situation with Liverpool regarding Aberdeen and the years they had because Liverpool in the 80s were a beast. And like I said, I was born in 89, and at that time, the last time they won the title was 1990. So I
Mm,
became a Liverpool fan when I was like 4 or 5 years old. So like 93, 94. And then 90s was pretty barren years for Liverpool. I think I had like one Coca-Cola Cup. A little bit of success beginning of 2000s. Then we had Istanbul, but then like it was pretty bare. And then obviously, our Lord and Savior Jurgen Klopp came and transformed us. But yeah, I understand, having your team be great and like before you was born or around about time you was born, and then just them being terrible pretty much for the last 30 years, and you're thinking, is it ever going to get better? Like I didn't think Liverpool was going to win a league title in my lifetime because there was times we came close, and I kind of like resigned to the fact I was like, I don't think we'll ever win the Premier League. But I always said if ever we did win the Premier League, I'll die a happy man. Thankfully, we did. And yeah, it'd be nice to win another one, but I'm like, I'm happy we actually won one. So if we don't win another one, be a little bit disappointing, but I'd be happy because we actually won one.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, and that was great. I mean, I was watching around that time when he's won the Champions League, when you're singing "You'll Never Walk Alone" at the end. And I'm not a Liverpool supporter, but you just get goosebumps. There's a certain spirit about the team Liverpool. And then when you're a player, you are seen as Liverpool pretty much for life. With the,
Yeah.
the guys going back, Gerrard. I was watching. It was Jordan Arisa, Sami Hypia. There was good times even from then. When I think when you won the treble that year in 2001, it was the lead.
That was
Was
a
it
good
the
year for us. Yeah.
yeah?
Yeah.
It was the UEFA Cup and it was the FA Cup and the League Cup. Am I right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we won the Champions League against Tottenham, because well, I live down southwest now, but I lived in Nottingham for many years. And so when we won it, I said to my wife, I'm like, right, I'm not going to work tomorrow. We're driving up to Liverpool. And we did. So, no, was that on a Sunday or Monday? Champions League, was that on Saturday or Sunday? Anyway, I think this Champions League was on a Saturday. So,
Saturday.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I said to my wife, I'm like, right. I said, we might be going to Liverpool tomorrow. She went, why? I said, because we're 1-0 up. I said, and if we win, there's going to be a parade. So anyway, she said to me, so it's like I don't know, like 75th minute. She says, "Are we going tomorrow or what?" I said, "Well, I don't know yet." She went, "Why?" I said, "Well, if we lose, I'm not going to Liverpool." So anyway, thankfully we won, and we drove up, and it was great to be part of that atmosphere, being in the parade and like being around all these fellow Liverpool fans from all different like cities and even countries. I was talking to some people from Israel at the time, and
Wow.
they was there as well and stuff, and it was great. It was unfortunate because the following year when we was dominating the league, my plan was to take my boy up the following year for the parade, but unfortunately COVID put a stop to that. So we finally win the title after 30 years, and we didn't have a parade because of lockdown. So disappointing, but oh well, could be worse.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate thing. And with the Scottish League, they just ended it. Celtic were so many points ahead. They were just like, screw it. Let's just give it to Celtic. And yeah, just a weird time. But weird things that have been kind of going on in the world right now. And I just don't know. I mean, this is, going off topic a bit, not speaking about wrestling. I mean, on Thursday, you've got an election, and it appears to me now that things are changing. I mean, there isn't really a difference between the two main parties, but it seems to me they're having it on Independence Day, the 4th of July. Is this just a bit of a piss take, you think, that's going on here? I mean, it looks to me like Starmer's going to come the next prime minister, but what's your thoughts on all this stuff, though?
It looks that way.
Yeah.
It's scary. Like I don't align to like any political party. I like to remain neutral, which believe or not, people, that you don't have to be left or right. You can, pick occasionally. You don't have to like, plant your flag into like each certain side. But like, don't get me wrong, my grandparents are conservative, and they've done fine out of it. But safe to say, the last 12 years for England, the country's been shit, and it's not getting any better. There's a cost of living crisis now. Lockdown and fucking track and trace and all the millions of pounds that was wasted was stupid. They should never have closed the country. Perhaps for a couple of weeks, when we started hearing about it, perhaps the country's never recovered from it. The nightclub industry's dead. I saw stats. I saw a stat the other day. It was like the amount of nightclubs, what's closed since nightclub culture is gone because people can't afford it now. Little mom and pop shops or like bakers and things like that, they've been pushed out of business. So yeah, and the Tories have just been terrible. It's like the amount of people using food banks these days. Before it was like maybe a few hundreds or like a few thousand, but now it's like tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people using food banks, and it's disgraceful. Shouldn't be happening, and it's not people who's unemployed; it's people who's actually working, who's actually got an income, but they're struggling with the cost of living. I mean, I've got a business and stuff, and I'm doing okay, but there's times I look at the fucking shopping bill at the end of the week. I'm like, fucking hell, Jesus Christ. And, I've got 3 boys and they're growing boys. So it hasn't been great underneath the Tories at all. The immigration is a joke at the minute. And I'm not saying that, like saying I'm anti-immigration. I'm not at all. If you come over here legally, contribute towards the country, by all means, our NHS service is built on, many people from many countries. And I mean, it's a tough story. It's my youngest, Joshua. He's non-verbal autistic, so he's 6. And a couple of years ago, we nearly lost him. He had a seizure. It was really bad, and it was the first time he's had one. And he nearly passed away. Fortunately, he pulled through, and he's okay. He's fine now. And all the people working on him is people from all different nationalities. And, I shook everyone's hand. I'm like, thankful because they saved my child's life, basically. So, and like my eldest, he goes Taekwondo. All his teammates is kids who's born in the UK, but their parents are from, Czech Republic or Poland and stuff. He talks to all of them. I talk to all the parents. Great people. But it's just the fact you have got people coming over on the boats who doesn't want to contribute to the country, who wants to take everything out the country. And unfortunately, we don't know who's coming over. You don't know if they're criminals. You don't know if they are criminals, what they've done in the past. It's like, so I'm in construction, and I remember doing a job on some hotels, and the hotels were closed. And I said to the manager who I got along with, I'm like, what's happening here then, mate? He's like, oh, we've had to close the hotels because, we've got immigrants in the hotel rooms. I went, really? And he says, the thing is, James, he says, they don't care. All they keep doing is smashing all our cutlery up and all the rooms up. And they don't respect what we're doing for them. And then, like, you saw these ladies come round in these vans and giving them all clothes and all things like that. And by the way, all these people in these rooms, there was no kids or women. It was all young men, like early to late 20s, early 40s, and early 30s. So that's that. So that needs to be sorted out. But under the Tories, that hasn't been working, and under Labour, I think they're just going to roll out the red carpet. So I like to think the country can get any worse, but it probably will. So you don't know what to vote for, and then you got reform. Some of the policies you agree with, but he could be just a snake oil salesman, Nigel Farage. So you don't know what to vote for. So I'll just see how it goes.
Right. Yeah, it's the way to take a wait and see approach. And I think, like Nigel Farage, he could just be there to ensure that, Keir Starmer will become prime minister. You hear about that whole thing about tactical voting, vote another party. So then the other party, that they won't get in, and that'll prop up the other party because the party you hate the most, they at least won't get in. So there maybe is some of that going on there. I'm very worried. I try to be in the middle. If I'm being truthful, I'm probably more center right-ish. But it's been a crazy time right now in politics. It's so much. It's all this tribalism of my side,
Yeah.
with the right and the left. They're both just as bad in a way.
Oh, yeah.
And it's what you say. You can be in the middle. I mean, I don't know if you remember that song. You heard it last year. You know the song that guy, the country guy did, Oliver Anthony.
Oh, yeah.
That one was it living in it. What was it? Living in a New World, I think it was called.
Something like
And
that, yeah.
they tried to paint him as right wing, but
That's
he was
right.
like, "No, I'm neutral. I'm politically neutral." The right tried to kind of the politicians like Ron DeSantis tried to latch on to that, and he was just like, "No, I'm not. I'm not on that side. It's not about politics. It's just about getting the word out there that hey, it's tough times right now in the world. People are suffering." And but yeah, I think what you were saying though, just you got to wait and see how things are going. I feel though, honestly, that the world is kind of going to hell in a handbasket. Yeah, it's kind of scary times right now. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, if if it's still like it's going to be Labour, so it's going to be Labour. So we'll see. I mean, oh, it's scary. The country's going to end up bankrupt, especially if Diane Abbott's on that fucking calculator. Good woman
Wow, yeah.
can't count. But I say that it could be worse. We could look at American politics. No offense to American fans, we love you. But you got Joe Biden or Donald Trump, and you literally got the blind leading the blind. So I watched the debate the other night, and Biden is weakened at Bernie's. Like I saw the video. His wife was like, "You doing great." Like talked to him like she was talking to him like how I used to talk to my children after they went to the potty. The way I would praise them and like clap for him. That's how she was talking to like her husband Joe Biden, and I couldn't help but find it hilarious.
Wow, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of these conspiracy theories though about the Joe Biden is a body double. There's certain
Probably.
times I've seen him look, and that could very well just be a total fake, and they're fooling us all. But I didn't even watch it because, in a way, I felt sorry for him. If it's really him, I heard that like he froze basically at a few different points, and it wasn't good at all. It almost makes me think now they want Trump to get in, and I still think Trump's
I
gonna,
think he will.
yeah. But I'm
Yeah,
just
I
worried.
think he'll
Well,
win it.
Trump is Trump going to back up on his claim that it's going to, he's going to end this. He's going to play a part in ending the conflict, with Russia and Ukraine. If he
I
can
mean, I hope he
back up
does.
on that,
I hope he does end it. I mean, who wants to see innocent people die? I mean, end of the day, it's the politicians that's corrupt, not the people. I mean, yeah, maybe some people, but not all of them. Just because Russia's been cast as the bad guys, probably rightfully so, doesn't mean the people are the bad guys. And I think people kind of forgets that. But I mean, if Trump's a man of his word, and he's like, "Yeah, I can end this," I'm like, "Please do," please do. But like America, unfortunately, you've got Biden, who's what, 82, 83 years old. Do you expect him to do another 4 years till he's 87? Like, seriously? And then you got Trump with everything that's happening with him, or you don't know what's happening with him. It's I'm like I love America, and I'm like, seriously, are they the best two people, best you can offer? I know we're shit in the UK, but I look at America, I'm like, are they your two best people?
Yeah. But I mean, it was just like Trump and Hillary Clinton 8 years ago. It's just it's madness. It's quite ridiculous. And at the end of the day, and I mean, I feel that I'm worried because I follow some of these conspiracy theory websites, and some people are saying people that in the know that they're wanting to try and push us into a war with Russia. And when you hear about Rishi talking about all this stuff about young kids, 16 to 18-year-old doing mandatory national service,
I think, yeah,
that's a little bit, yeah.
I think 18 to 40 even. So I think I'm gonna be called up.
Oh,
I don't know if he's just trying to get the votes from, like, say, the older generation who has done national service, or who's been in service. I never have. I wanted to as a kid. Parents wouldn't let me. So yeah, I mean, Conservatives ain't winning anyway, so we can forget about that. I don't even know why he called for a general election, because that was bad advice. Because I guess he was trying to call it before it got worse for him, but I think everyone knew that there was no way he was going to stay in power. So he's going to be gone. I'm actually grateful he's gone. He's going, because their big plan was because they want to get rid of cash completely and have like a central currency, linked with like credit scores and shit. And I'm like, that's dark days. I'm like, please, everyone who's listening, please make sure you use your cash. We need to keep cash. Once cash is gone, we are screwed.
good point. Excellent. Yeah, I know. And you know what? Interesting. 2 years ago, I went to Burger King here in town, and it was cash only. But then, funnily enough, they did
Right.
overturn that later on, and they do accept credit. Sorry, credit card only. But now they did overturn it, and now they accept cash payments. So I don't know what they're doing. If they were just maybe testing the waters with these big, big chains and all the other big companies that will probably want to get away from cash only. That's probably where they're going to head. It's going to gradually, step by step, they're going to roll it out.
Well, the Turkish barbers would be screwed.
Oh, right, yeah. I mean, you see these things. I get these things popping up all the time about card payments, systems for small businesses and that, because I think that's a big thing. A lot of these companies are setting up that set up these card payments because they want to get away from cash, and I think that's what they're really trying to push. But just look at some comments here. I've got Coco Beware saying here to support your big brother James. Adam saying, when is wrestling coming on to Netflix, and do you have to pay? Do you know that? When do you have to pay for it?
I'm hoping it'll just be part of the current subscription you've got, I would imagine, and the price might go up a little bit, because Netflix are spending a lot of money on it. So I don't know what. You know what? It sounds daft. I don't even know how much Netflix costs now. I've just got like the basic package, so I get the adverts now and shit. So the price might go up a little bit, but I'm already giving £10 a month for the network anyway. So when it gets moved to Netflix, even if Netflix doubles in price over here, it's not going to work out any more expensive for me, because I've already got the network anyway. But I don't think it'll double in price. It'll probably go up a little bit, but I think it starts beginning of next year. So, but yeah, in the UK, across Europe, I think maybe Canada as well, actually. We'll get Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and the pay-per-views. Hopefully, we get a lot of the classic content as well. That's probably my biggest fear. If we don't get that, I wish I kept my DVDs and videos.
Oh yeah. I for me, it was back in the day. It was VHS. That was the thing, and I still have some. I've cleared away some of them. It was the same with DVDs. I remember I had the Crispin Law documentary, and after what happened when it came out, I sold that quite quickly. I maybe made a mistake because I could have kept it. It would have been a rare, rare copy, and kept it for years and years. And somebody may have paid maybe, I don't know, 50, 60 pounds for it. But yeah, it's just crazy time. I mean, everything's so accessible these days with YouTube, Spotify, Netflix. And when it's like you get a Netflix subscription, I don't know about you, I can sometimes just be staring at the homepage and I'm like, I don't know what to watch. There's so many things, so many options,
Yeah, it's weird because like growing up, like we just used to have our videos and stuff, and like you could always find something. But yeah, it's weird because it's kind of the thing I've got, like less is more, and you got so many choices now. But let's be honest, a lot of new stuff ain't that great. Anyway, don't get me wrong, I'm looking forward to the new season of Cobra Kai. Can't wait. 2 weeks, but yeah, it's like there's no great new horror movies. You get the odd one, but there's nothing great. Um, unfortunately, a lot of movies and a lot of franchises that I loved, there's too many political agendas happening with them. I'm not talking about Star Wars. um, Man, I'm so upset that Disney bought Star Wars. But yeah, it's weird because it's like back in the day, you go to Blockbusters and you'd be amazed on like the what you could find, and you always found something. But like you said, you go on Amazon or you go on Netflix, and it's like, oh, I've got nothing to watch tonight. It's weird. But yeah, we
Yeah.
grew up with 5 channels. Well, for four, we grew up with 4 channels for the biggest time on TV, and we could always find something to watch.
Right. Yeah. And the thing with me, I'm 33, so I was of that generation. As even as kids, we didn't really have mobile phones. Mobile phones were just getting popular at that point.
Yeah,
But we just go out. You go out to the park with your friends late in the evening. You play, and you get by. And there's not this big concern about, oh, you might get, watch out for you might, somebody might grab you or something might happen. Yeah, it seems like simpler times that to live in. But now it's going to be that thing with kids. They're going to be attached to social media. They're going to be attached to looking at their phones. I mean, with your kid, with your boys, do you have that issue there? Are they, oh, Dad, I'm wanting Facebook. I want the new iPhone. I want the new this. How do you find with that, dealing with that?
yeah. It's yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I will say like kids having tablets or phones is a bit of a cheat code for parents because we don't need to look after them as much. We can just give them a phone to look at. But no, so I mentioned it earlier. So me 2 eldest, they do taekwondo, and the reason I done that is because they were spending not so much little. They would spend time on the phone, but it was more like just playing the video games. And don't get me wrong, I love playing video games. I'm playing Fallout 4 at the minute. I'm loving it, and I've been playing Mortal Kombat over the weekend. But it was like, right, I need to get them an activity to do because they can't just sit inside. Because kids ain't like how we was kids when we would go outside, have a kick about, or go to the park or whatever, and you don't come until, it was nighttime. It has changed for kids now. But so I let them play the telly and like they go on the phone stuff. But with the taekwondo, like that was their thing. I was like, right, you need to do something active and something you can put in use. And they love it, thankfully. My eldest does. He's got a tournament in Guildford this weekend we're going to. But with phones and tablets, with consoles, Lewis, it's like, oh, I would love to have a PlayStation 5. So, you try and get a PlayStation 5. Well, with the phones, to be honest, they're not that bad. They're like, my son's got just like an Android phone. He's got a phone. The other two's got like tablets. And we won't go out of our way just to get the new tablet. They'll keep them tablets if they break, and then they'll get a fresh one. So my boys are quite good. They're not greedy for that at all. So I've been blessed with that. But yeah, unfortunately, we do live in a generation where kids expect every new little thing that comes out, like the new iPhone, the new iPad, and it's like I don't know how sustainable. My Android phone, I've had it for like 2 years, and I've got no intent of swapping it till it breaks.
Mm. I'm the same, just a Google phone. Pretty not the biggest, most fancy phone, but yeah, I'm not too big. I don't always have to be up to date. Oh, I've got to have the latest this, the latest that. You just get caught in that consumer trap, which they want you to be in ultimately.
Yeah.
And I think as well, it's I don't know. As I say, I mean, I come from the time. I don't know if you were the same when you were younger, as like a young teen, a kid. I had a Nokia 3310 and Snake
Yeah.
2. I love playing that. It was just like easier times, and it's not now like with with the social media, with X, with Twitter, with Instagram and TikTok. Yeah, there can be a lot of funny stuff in kids and entertaining things, but then that's where a lot of the bullying can start and people feeling less than if they've not got as many subscribers, followers, friends on these platforms, So there is the good and the bad with this. But I kind of feel that there might be a bit
Yeah.
more bad than good. I don't know about you.
Yeah. So for example, so like my eldest, James Dean, he's 10. So with his taekwondo, he was like, "Oh, Dad, can I have a TikTok to put on like me taekwondo videos, and then like an Instagram because some of my friends are on Instagram." So I'm like, "Yeah, no problem." But I said, but like the TikTok's on my phone anyway because he couldn't do it on his phone, so it's on my phone anyway. So and Same with Cafe. When I record one of his fights or if he's training, because I can do editing, I'll edit his videos for him and I'll upload them for him on these TikTok or his Instagram. So he's got his Instagram as well, where he posts like his pictures and stuff. But thankfully, we're quite close. I've put the work in to be close with the kids, and they trust me, thankfully, and I trust them. They're good boys, and they don't keep no secrets. And like, I've got access to his Instagram and to his TikTok. I don't snoop if he's talking to his friends, but if there's like someone I don't really recognize, and there isn't, but if there was, I would make sure, you know what I mean? So to be safe, but thankfully there's no bullying and stuff. And for his TikTok, he's actually doing all right. He's doing better numbers than me. One of his fights has got like 70,000 views or something.
Nice.
So
Yeah, the
he's doing
algorithm, if
good.
you get the right hashtags and everything, it can blow up.
Yeah. So he's actually doing all right in that. I told Renee. Renee's like, what? So I'm like, yeah. I'm like, a couple of his videos, he's done quite well because for Cinemax, which I do with Paul London, I interviewed Sean Kanan, Mike Barnes for Karate Kid fans, and my boy loves Karate Kid and Cobra Kai. So after I done the interview with Sean, I was like, me boy sat right next to me. I'm like, he loves Cobra Kai. He said he loves Mike Barnes. Can you interview you, give you free questions? He went, yeah, no problem. So, he asked him his free questions and he posted on his Instagram, on his TikTok, sorry. And, that done like 60,000 views. And then he put on his Instagram and he tagged the actor in with it and it done like shitloads of views and stuff like that. So yeah, so it's great when I can actually allow him to talk to these people he loves watching on TV.
Right. Yeah, that's excellent. That's awesome. And I think, getting involved when you're doing stuff like Taekwondo and Judo, I think for me growing up as a kid, the kids that did Judo, I didn't want to fuck with them. I would
Yeah.
not mess with kids that are doing Judo. It's one thing when kids are doing training and boxing, and some people maybe even get involved in MMA in their teens. But yeah, I wouldn't mess with the kids that were doing Judo. And they were a no-go for me. But you were saying earlier on, is it your kids, they don't follow wrestling? Is that right?
Yeah, so like I said, we went to Clash a couple of years ago and they loved it, they enjoyed it. But like I said, where I grew up loving wrestling, and wrestling was like 24/7 in my head at times, they're not the same. And now, like I said, if I've got it on, so normally I put wrestling on if I'm doing some, like, say, editing for the cafe, or just do it. Even if just doing my work, for example, when I'm sending emails and shit, I'll have some wrestling on in the background. If I'm not watching something else, I'll put wrestling on. And if I'm sort of watching it, they'll come up and be like, "What you watching?" I'm like, "Oh, just watching wrestling if you want to watch it." And they'll sit down and watch it. They like Royal Rumble matches because everyone loves a Royal Rumble match. And they like some of the wrestlers like Cody Rhodes, Roman. Me middle boy Sam, he loves Logan Paul because he's obsessed with Prime. So I was like, "Oh, it's Cody Rhodes is against Logan Paul." He was like, "What?" So he'll watch it. So that gives you the idea of like why WWE books Logan Paul, because he appeals to like kids who doesn't even watch wrestling, for example. So that's why they book him. But yeah, they enjoy it if I've got it on, but they won't go out of their way to watch it, if that makes sense. But if it's on and the family are watching it, they'll sit beside me and they'll check out what's happening. But yeah, but like I said, with them, I don't pressure into liking stuff and things like that. It's a hard balance, really. But it's like even in the Taekwondo, my middle boy Sammy does it, but he does his training and that's it. He kind of forgets about it for a week. Whereas in my eldest boy loves doing taekwondo, and it's his passion in life. And yeah, there's times where I have to motivate him when it comes to training, not force him, but like encourage him. So it's the right balance, and that's the same for their general interest in most things. So yeah, it's a tough balance being a parent.
Oh no, absolutely. And I think from what you're saying, you can go from different interests when you're a kid. Because I could,
Yeah.
I know you have, I had an after school club, you have drama groups, you have stuff like that, and play football. And there's just a wider variety of options, and then I think what it is that the world's your oyster. I don't. It sounds a
True.
little bit pokey or a bit corny, but and I think as well, it's like with Logan Paul, that's a big thing because these kids are going crazy for Prime. They're the
Yeah.
kids that are just bombing into the store to get the latest bottles of Prime, and that's what they'll be getting a huge buzz from, even if we think it's kind of ridiculous. But that's a big thing with Logan Paul, how popular he is in WWE. But I know what you're saying though. If they maybe they'll go out their way to watch wrestling. Like I watch tennis. I don't follow it all the time, but if it's on TV, I'll watch Wimbledon. But I'm not
Same,
like
yeah.
yeah, and I think most people have that. We're kind of like casual tennis fans, not like casual wrestling fans, but be obsessed with that. But yeah, tennis when Wimbledon's on can always be good to watch. But I never would go out my way to watch something like a tennis. I wouldn't watch tennis all the time or watch
No.
golf all the time. That's just me personally. But
And I think that's what wrestling needs as well, and what it misses is that casual fan who just, who just tunes in. It's like, and I believe Raw going on Netflix, or like WWE fully going on Netflix next year in the UK, like it's going to be surprising how many people actually tunes in. Like, I think it's a great deal. If they are wanting just to bring, I mean, my brother, he doesn't watch WWE. He checks out. He likes AEW, but to be fair, he doesn't like AEW as much as he used to. But he said to me, he's like, because you could say he's anti WWE. But he says when it goes to Netflix, he said he will watch NXT to try it out. And but like I said before, wrestling needs that casual audience because, like I said, back in like Attitude Era, people would go to a wrestling show like to be going out to a nightclub or a bar for the weekend. That's what it was like. Oh, who wants to this Monday? Should we go to a bar? No, let's just go to attend this Raw and watch all this thing happening. That's what it was like, and you can tell when you go back and watch them shows. Look at the crowds. Yeah, you get your wrestling fans in t-shirts, but a lot of them people was like, I don't know, say like frat boys, for example, or just like regular people. I'm not saying wrestling fans ain't regular people, but just like, just people just like, oh, we'll just check out the wrestling. And that's what it was like back in the territory days, in the old days. You would see the old, grandmas taking the grandkids and things like that. It was like it was a family day out and stuff. But now, the only people that attend wrestling shows are wrestling fans. So you need that casual audience for your company to grow. So when you get Tony, and I think that's what WWE is trying to do again. But when you got Tony Khan just saying, I'm booking for the sickos, I'm like, yeah, well, good luck with your company growing. I mean, let's be honest, without the Big Bang Theory, Dynamite is the shits.
Yeah, true. And it's just that bottomless pit of money where you can pay MJF $50 million a year.
Yep.
It's but I hope so. I hope WWE can improve, and maybe that's a big thing when it goes to Netflix. Maybe this could be like a dawn of a new era, maybe a new look, a new theme song, and just maybe some hot, good storylines.
We're definitely heading that way.
Yeah, I hope so, and I hope even like similar to the way Vince Russo booked, where everybody's got a storyline. That was the big thing when back in the day, even on Sunday Night Heat, they had angles and backstage segments and all that type of build up. It'd be good to go back to that and not just have Nakamura in a cold match against one of buddy Gunfer's cronies. You know what I mean? Actually have some proper stories there and some good build there. How are you for time, James? How long would you say have you got?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do another 5-10 minutes, that'd be great because it's getting a little bit late and I need to just get a clip out for the cafe before I finish. So go to sleep.
Let's keep it about 5-10 minutes. Yeah, that works for me too. Let's look at some of these comments. So Davros said, when you have mother like Vicky Askew, he's talking about Vince McMahon's mother, Vince was always going to be a bit sick in the head. Now, I've heard stories about Vince's upbringing. I heard it was more on the side of his stepdad. But then I did hear some weird stories. I think was it when Ben Hameen was on your pod on the show. Ben Hameen was saying something about Vince's mom had him dress up and wear dresses and makeup when he was real young. Was that?
I think Ben might have said that. I'm not sure, but so from what I heard, his parents split up and he was with his mother. I don't know if he was raised up on like a trailer park or something like that. but I heard he got abused rather by his stepdad or even his mother, possibly. So there was shit like that happening. I know I think he went to the army or some sort of thing to try and get away from it. Then eventually he reconnected with his father, and obviously that led to him becoming into the business. But I mean, yeah, having a shitty childhood can do shit to people. I mean, if ever you're into like true crime, for example, 9 times out of 10, all these like murderers or like bad people's had terrible childhoods. It's not an excuse if what Vince has allegedly done is true. It's not an excuse, but it's a running theme that if you've had a shitty childhood, not saying that everyone with a shitty childhood has been a bad person. Some ends up having good lives, but it's a running theme that shitty people tend to be people that's had a shitty childhood.
Yeah, that's a big thing, and I know people personally who've been that way when they grow up, and it's like a very much they don't care who they hurt type thing, and it's very much goes back to the childhood. Parents maybe divorced at a young age, and maybe lost a family member at a young age. Sadly, things like that. Yeah, it always goes back to childhood. I don't think it would be if somebody's had, a couple of siblings or their mom and dad have been together for 30 years. Would somebody be so cold and so heartless? There would be that. Like, they would have some empathy, more empathy.
Yeah, and it's a shame because it's like, especially in America, they're trying to do away with, say, the nuclear family. The two parents and say two kids or whatever. They're trying to demonize that, saying it's a bad thing, and I'm like, no, it's really a good thing. There's some great mothers in the world, and there's some great fathers, and there's some great single mothers and some great single fathers. But 9 times out of 10, life is easier for these kids when they've got both parents. You need a father and a mother. As much as if you've got a great single mother or a great single father, ideally you could do with both. But unfortunately, they're trying to demonize that and make everything so liberal. And but like, thank me and my wife, we've been married 11 years now, and so it's been great. And I couldn't think of separating because we love each other, but also, I've got the kids as well, and I want to make sure they've got a great childhood as well. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there who has children for selfish reasons and looks at their children like accessories. And there's a lot of men out there as well who doesn't want to take responsibility for the kids. So yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, that's a big thing, and I mean, the man. That's the thing. If the man's not in the household, and I think that's a big thing. What they call cultural Marxism. I think it maybe started in Germany, and it's been spread around the West. That the big agenda was to get the men out of the household. The women will be dependent on the welfare system, and then the kids growing up with a single parent, directionless, not know where they're going, a lot of rage, and then it just builds up and up, and it doesn't help society move forward in a good way. Really, it kind of ends up going the opposite direction. And there is that agenda there. I don't even think it's just with America, what you're saying in nuclear family. I think it's going to hit here, and in UK, it'll hit throughout Europe.
Yeah.
I think maybe certain parts, Asia might not be affected by it. Africa, maybe not. I think there's still quite strong traditional values. I know some people in Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, they haven't been hit with all this woke shit,
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we're the suckers that have to suffer with it,
True.
I know.
Very good.
It's I don't know. The world's. I say the world's going to hell in a handbasket. I hope not, but that sadly appears where it's going to go. I've got Dan Kind P is saying James is a Swiss. Do you have Swiss roots, James? He's saying you're Swiss.
I think the reason he says that because the commentary is that Switzerland is neutral and everything. So that's why. And it's like one of my friends, Sam. We call him Swiss because he's never got a strong opinion on anything. He always likes remaining neutral. So I think that's what Dan's referring to.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. Is Swiss not a bit more right wing? Switzerland?
It's a good question, actually.
Yeah.
It's a good question. I mean, hopefully we beat them this Saturday. But yeah, I think because obviously Switzerland, it's kind of at the center of everything for the EU, obviously with Geneva and stuff like that. So I think they try to remain impartial to a lot of stuff. So I guess that's why.
Part of that maybe, and then maybe also this is where all these wealthy, rich, super rich people are connected, and then that's where they go. They get their bank account there. They get their
Yeah.
tax free money, all tax free. Maybe that's part of it too. But yeah, I've got Davros is commenting. I'm not voting. Don't trust anyone. I'm going to be the same this Thursday.
True.
Yeah, Dan Kind P. It's because today kids can't count change. LOL. A bit harsh, but maybe true.
True.
He's also saying Dan KP, phones, computers aren't as big as upgrades as they used to be. Yeah, a lot of that's just kind of a scam. Is it a couple, one or two different upgrades to make you think, oh, you need more? And yeah, I don't fall for that shit.
Yeah, it's like the new iPhone. And I thought it was a joke. The new iPhone allows you to move some of your things around on the home screen. And I'm like, I've been able to do it on my fucking Android for like years. I'm like, really? Is this the next big thing? So
yeah.
there's even like the PlayStation, to be honest with you, like PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5, there isn't a big jump. Now, quicker loading times maybe, and there is slight differences, but there isn't that big of a jump. It's not like fucking PlayStation 1 to PS2 or even PS2 to PS3. So yeah, I'm eventually we will possibly get a jump, but it's not going to be big jumps. It's going to be steady little jumps. So it's like fucking say the WWE 2K games. I got the 2K22 with Mysterio on the cover. I haven't bothered with the last two because there's nothing big and new in it. So I'm gonna so I leave it for like a couple of years till I get like another one.
Right. Yeah. Good idea. And I think that was a big thing with the SmackDown video game, wasn't it? A lot of people were upset when it was the one in 4 years ago came out during the pandemic, and there was something went wrong with it. And
2K20, yeah, everything went wrong with that game.
yeah, and but I think it was that. Did it come out just when the pandemic hit, or was it during it? And then that was the issue because with COVID, there wasn't time to the final finishes on it, or
yeah, it was what was it? Was it 2K20? Yeah, it must have been 2K20. Yeah, it came out, but it was a broken game, and I think they tried to patch it, but the game was just ruined basically. And they skipped the next year, then they didn't come back to like 2K22 basically. So yeah, it was probably that. But I think it came out slightly before the pandemic, but because of the pandemic, not a lot of people was working even in the computer game industry. So yeah, it must have been something like that.
yeah, maybe something like that. Yeah. I know when Scotland here, Dundee was the place where a lot of the Rockstar games started up with Grand Theft Auto going back to 95, 96. We've had a big part there with developing that. Dankind P saying, I'll be happy if they stop having 3-4 minute entrances sucking up time. Yeah, have you found that on Raw and SmackDown? It's longer entrances, or is that or do they still do just the short entrances and the wrestlers already in the ring? How's that going?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of enjoy the backstage sort of things they're doing now, like the wrestlers walking out and stuff like that. But at the same time, I'm a fan of like say the old school entrance ramps where you had the wrestler walking, but you had like fans literally just about that much to the right of them and that much to the left of them. Because if I remember many times watching Hogan, he'd be pointing the finger walking out, and you could see the fans, trying to hold him and stuff like that. And like Brett, he would always walk out and slap hands to the left, slap hands to the right. But now, I guess that's just the way how it is. Like the entrance is a big part of like the presentation, but it doesn't feel. It's starting to change a little bit now because instead of these big stages, what they've always had, they're trying to make the stages a bit smaller, and they're trying to make it feel like a little bit more intimate, rather than just big spectacles. So, yeah, if they can speed up the entrances a little bit more, it would be better. But I guess they're trying to do it for commercials, and commercial time and shit like that.
Right. Yeah, that might be part of it. Yeah, but I agree. A lot of it is overdone. Especially, I always used to be a big fan of the WrestleMania style entrances. Was a bit when it's elaborate and you maybe got a band performing the theme
Yeah,
song. But now you get that shit a lot of the time. Money in the Bank, even SummerSlam. Sometimes it's better just to save that for the big show.
yeah,
Once a year WrestleMania. Heel Gill commented, this popped up of my algorithm. Nice Heel Gill. I believe that's from Cafe De Rene. Is that one you
in the
know?
cafe. Thank
Yeah.
you, Heel Girl.
Loyal Cafe fans. Yeah, thanks for coming along. Davros saying Switzerland funded the Nazis. They probably played a part in funding them with
So
other
yeah,
Rothschilds and all the other. Yeah, oh yeah. Dan Kine saying they do a 2-minute entrance and their 3-minute commercial and they're still doing their entrance. Yeah, it's part of the
yeah.
reason why I'm not watching anymore, to be honest with you. I struggle to
No.
follow. But we've hit midnight, James. So I think I got to let you go now. But I know from what you were saying, so it's a 200 show anniversary on Friday evening. Is that right?
Yeah, so this Friday we're doing our 200th live stream. So it's flew by, to be honest with you. But yeah, 200th live stream. So last night I done a show with Maven and Stevie Richards, which had a great time. And yeah, it's first time. Well, I've had Maven on my old show before, but like it's like probably the first time where it's just been me and Stevie, and then they kind of overlap. But for the first hour, basically, it was me and Stevie. Then Maven jumped on, and we had like a half an hour overlap, half an hour, 40 minutes off me, Stevie, and Maven. Then, like, for the remaining hour, it was me and Maven. So last night we had a great stream. But yeah, this Friday, live stream 200, Renee makes his return after having his 2 week break to recharge the batteries. And Paul's returning as well. So should be great. So, and yeah, probably just talk about all the great moments we've had in the cafe and obviously talk about current stuff as well. And yeah, so if everyone is watching, if you're not subscribed to Cafe De Rene with Rene Dupree, please do so. And yeah, we would love to have you check out our next show, and we try and get clips out every day and such as well.
Brilliant. And yeah, I left a link to your channel. I left a link to the Shopify as
Oh,
well
thank you.
for you. But yeah, that was really good live stream. I watched most of it yesterday. Maven and Stevie Richards. The bit at the end, the exchange at the very end with Stevie and Maven, I thought that was quite emotional. Just that seemed real. You get a lot of this wrestling bullshit about who's a good worker and work rate, but that was like real life human beings talking there. And that I felt a little bit emotional watching that, but that was good. I very much enjoyed the live stream that you had yesterday. But yeah, you know what, James, thanks very much for coming on. I really do. I appreciate it, and I've been following the cafe and what you've been doing for a long time. And I think with you, I very much like we've just been flowing with this and talking and talking. I think it was said I was going to have you 45 minutes, but I've really enjoyed this. And I think what I like about you is that when you're doing the cafe, you're not about getting your shit in. When to be quiet, and you're respectful there when the guys when they're talking a lot about their old war stories and that. I just think of that's Denise Salcedo and Sean Ross Sapp. Imagine how those fools would be acting if that's them in your shoes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's finding the right balance, and you can't please every fan. There's fans what's like, oh, James doesn't talk much. Why is he there? He doesn't bring anything to the show. And then there's some, I say fans. There'll be some people that's like, oh, why is that fat guy there? He doesn't talk much, doesn't bring anything to the show. And then there'll be people like, oh, why is he talking so much? He's trying to make the show about himself. So you can't please everyone. So when it comes to the trolls and that, you just kind of like ignore them because you're doing something that they won't step out of their comfort zone to do. So that's how I look at it. So you kind of just ignore them. But yeah, basically, Cafe De Rene is not about me. Don't get wrong, I'm a big part of the cafe. It's me and Renee's show. But I know everyone tunes in for Renee and they tune in for the guests. But, I'm just basically there just to steer the ship, make sure everything's going to plan, basically. So, but no, it's great to be part of. And, hopefully, we keep growing.
No, excellent. That sounds good. But I think the way these things work and just in life, Renee, you needed Renee, Renee needed you in a sense. I mean, you reached out to Renee to do that interview. If it hadn't been you, he might have not had that opportunity there to speak and then helped grow his following on Twitter. And then, I know he got the big interview with Van Vellet and that really boosted the channel. And so I think it can work both ways how these things go. And but I enjoy the show. I know you were talking through your favorite, your best, worst podcast, and I'm not just saying it because you're on. You're one of my favorite ones. I check for you probably up there with, to me, keeping it 100, Vince Russo. I follow you guys, and what James, the guy, does with Dutch, he's okay. But no, I really do enjoy what you're doing, and you've put the work in with this, and you're building it, and much respect for that. And yeah, thanks very much for coming on. And we definitely we will keep in touch. And if you can come on again another time, that'd be excellent. But it's been a good one. 2+ hours with this. It's been a real good chat. So yeah, very much. Thank you very much for coming on this evening, James. Really do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, no, not a problem, mate. But yeah, thanks a lot. So I think now, I'm just going to get my sleep. I know you might be, it's past midnight here, so I'm going to be probably just lying in the dark room somewhere. It's been a long one. But that's me, the first chat with James here. And maybe there'll be a few more to come. So again, thanks a lot, James. Thanks, everybody, for tuned in. Thank you, guys. See ya.